learn that.
Okay, we're being recorded now. We got to straighten up, right?
Yeah. Before we get started, Ilona, I wanted, because honestly, this last section reminds me so much of your teachings. So much of your teachings, but at the same time, it was so interesting because that little girl in me was going through all the teachings that I was taught as I was being raised a Catholic, you know. Mm-hmm. And you're taught that, well, even in Christianity, you're taught that you die and you go to heaven or you go to hell kind of thing. And as a child, I remember thinking to myself, I think it's all here, you know, but I never professed that because my grandmother would have strangled me. But as I was reading that, I thought, we've always had it within us, like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. We've always had choice in this. So, but I wanted to see, because literally this last section, we could go weeks because there's so much. It's like I was trying to decide what do I pick. But I'm wondering if you could chime in, because you've given us a lot of this wisdom already.
I'm happy to chime in wherever, but you know, each of those alchemies is another meeting.
Just that's what I'm saying.
Do it that way. It really could expand because there's so much to speak about in each one of those settings and how the four agreements connects to each of those settings and you know the death and life one, and yes. So anyway, I'm just putting that out there. If you want to, you know, say to the people, we could just focus on one of these at a time.
Well, honestly, even just on the parasite alone, it's like one big thing. But I think this last section, well, let's first talk and then get our thing, and then we'll dive in because I'm already jumping ahead.
But what if we took our time with it, Marie, and really let it soak in? Because I think there's a lot that we have to let soak in. And
this last section literally brings everything together, and it really just gives you the steps to move forward with this transformation phase. So we could just start like we always do, and then we can jump in because it's a lot.
Okay. Lisa, is Noreen new? I don't remember Noreen.
Yeah, that's my aunt, but she just texted me and said that she can't get the volume to work.
Oh.
I'm not sure. She said she's going to log off because she can't get the volume to work.
Oh, keep trying.
I know. Yeah, Dan looked at it last week and got it to work, but I guess it's not working right now.
Well,
could you use her phone, Liz?
She said her phone doesn't have enough, is it space or memory for Zoom? Like it just won't launch on her phone. I'm gonna go let Dan know right now and see if he can call her and guide her through it.
Yeah, she finally made it on. Crumb.
No, I know. She was really excited.
Oh, she's coming. Look at it, says connecting to audio. She's really trying here.
keep going, Noreen. We're rooting for you.
Hey, go.
Go, Noreen. Go, Noreen. Before we get started, how is everybody? Everybody have a good week? Yes, Ilona? You're muted, by the way, Ilona.
Would be helpful if I unmuted. Thank you, Lisa. So I just want to, especially Marilyn, I don't know if you're feeling this or not, but I definitely wanted to put this out there for everybody. I have a massive announcement. And Lisa, you know that I say things and people don't understand it, but you can feel it, and that's all that matters. You don't need to put your head around it. You can just feel it, and all that matters. So on every planet, there is a spiritual government that is invisible, that overlights the development of civilizations and the planet itself. And they come in and they stay for, you know, 10s, 50, 100,000 years, different things like that. Anyway, this past Wednesday, there was a changing of the guard. And the planetary spiritual government, the hierarchy that oversees the evolution of human civilization on this planet, moved from 3D to 5D. And there was an installation of an entire new spiritual hierarchy that is taking over and is really going to guide humanity through this very critical time and then into the future. And so the old planetary hierarchy had all the ascended masters and the 12 major angels that you know about, Michael, Archangel Raphael, all the rest of that, and all the ascended masters, Katumi and Lady Master Nada and El Moria, Saint Germain. Those were all the bigwigs in that planetary hierarchy, and they are totally respected, valued, appreciated. They're all moving on in the ways that will be best for their highest good. But there are 12 new department heads. Not many of them are human. So there are a couple humanoids. There are other light beings that are also coming in and participating. But the good news about this is that there was an immediate descent of a galactic diplomatic team that deals with planetary warfare that has descended around Vladimir Putin and the entire Russian people. And it's this level of solar, galactic, and universal support that's going to see the planet through. This was on its way, but it was accelerated due to what's happening now. So what I want to tell everybody is this is extremely good news. You could still pray to all of the old people. They're going to be around for a while. There's a transition phase. But as we get more significant information about our new guiders, organizers, leaders, I can make that available to you. So you can start calling on the new specialists that are here and really beginning. When they came in, they immediately went to work. They presented themselves before Mother, Father, Earth. Mother, Father, Earth had to accept and receive them. And the level of humility, collaboration, support, and attention being paid to this entire planetary organism. Even the God of this planet, who used to be Lord Buddha, is now Lord Oahu. Even the being that literally embodies all of us has changed with this frequency to host a fifth dimensional invisible government that's going to see us through these next 10 years. So this is great news. So just wanted to let everybody know this is really good stuff.
Okay, well, it's great to have great news. So thank you for our new fifth dimension guide people.
Well, Ilona, I have a question because I am just in awe of all of this. How did you come to learn about all of this? Did you find sources or did you just innately knew this stuff?
Well, so I remember that, I came to the earth with all of these jobs put in place. So there was a linkage to it, but you could learn about all this stuff. I mean, my training really came from Lord Melchizedek, the Mahatma energy, Archangel Michael, the Christ energies. There was a 6-year process when I went to Mount Shasta every year for a major Wesak festival, and the Ascended Masters taught me directly. I mean, it came in directly. But when I was 18 years old, I bought the books by Elizabeth Clare Prophet and I read them all. And I read them all and I did the stuff that was in them. Didn't really make that much sense to me, but I was connected to it at 18, but I wasn't developed enough until my 30s for it to really begin to kick into gear. And then I started getting the direct teachings from the masters. And then I got, I started to work with the planetary hierarchy. Then I got to galactic energies, then I got to universal energies, and now I'm into cosmic energy. So I got promotions as I went through my life, but it was more about the jobs that I had to complete here and the levels that I had to be at to complete those missions. So there is basic mystery school information that you could look up, Alice Bailey materials and the Lucius Trust stuff. And so there's stuff out there. But my point is, We are at the new place. Nobody's writing about this yet. It just happened. So I'm going to be doing a lot of writing. And sending it out. This isn't, that's all old. That's all changed. It's all shifted. It's really, it's so hopeful and so wonderful. And I think the stuff in Russia is going to go on for another 2.5 to 3 months. So it's not going away right away, but about the 3-month mark, we should see some kind of resolution occurring.
So Ilona, if your first book could be Fifth Dimension for Dummies, that would be great. That would help me.
So you know what? This is a really interesting thing. It is a very, very interesting thing because in a few months, the first book that I wrote over 12 years ago that introduces you to this is actually being published. And I was going to ask if our group would be willing to experiment with my first book club around it.
Yeah, let's talk about it. And so it's about Fifth Dimension.
Realizing an enlightened civilization of peace.
Okay, maybe could we just have someone in our the board of directors preview it, Ilona, first?
It's not even out yet.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, then let's make a plan.
But it's exactly what you asked for. That's it.
Ask and you shall receive, right? So before we go on, Janet's going to lead us in our meditation today, and we'll have Marilyn do our protection prayer. And as soon as Marie gets back, my question is posed to Marie. It was a very big chapter, and I feel like there's probably quite a bit of it that might require us to, explore it over several mornings rather than just try to cram it into one. And so that's just my suggestion. I see some nodding heads, so I think you guys are kind of agreeing. I will tell you, I got to a point in it, I'm like, yeah, my brain can't take anymore. So I did not finish the chapter because I just was a little overwhelmed with trying to figure out some of the things that I'm sure we'll talk about today. So Marilyn, if you would be so kind to lead us. Liz, did Noreen get her volume to work, or can she hear us?
She can hear us, but her camera's not working.
Okay.
So yeah, Dan was able to guide her to turn on the volume so she can hear us, but her camera, he's going to take a look at it this week.
Okay, well, welcome, Noreen, and I'm glad that you could join us today. We're really excited to have you finally. So, and baby Gwen.
And baby.
Yes.
Okay, Marilyn, take it away.
Okay. Take a deep breath. Notice the shoulder blades, let them relax back. We clothe ourselves in a robe of light composed of the love, the power, and the wisdom of divine consciousness. We wear it not only for our own protection, but also so that those who see it or come in contact with it will be drawn to divine consciousness and healed. Let's remember that we are divine light. Each breath we take is mouth to mouth resuscitation with divine consciousness, and that's what we are. There it is.
Thank you. Thank you. This meditation, it came to me spontaneously and helped me in meditation, so I thought I'd share it. So if we could just take a deep breath in gratitude for all the people here on this call, for someone like Ilona being able to share her wisdom with us, to have beautiful Gwen smiling at us, and all the women who would like to be here but had commitments. Just a state of gratitude. Breathing in and breathing out. And as you're breathing in, really feel your body. Hopefully your feet are grounded to the floor so you feel the energy from the core of the earth entering through your body, expanding through every cell, and then rising up through the top of your head. And as you feel your body, realize that the ancestors and generations of people before you that came to this earth in a miraculous form created the miracle of you. So really dwelling in the miracle of these bodies that have taken us through decades, some of us more decades than the others, but have serviced and guided us through tough times, through disease, and through wonderful times. So as we honor our bodies, I also ask you to look at your mind. These wonderful minds that try to process new information, that try to adapt and adjust to the energies of the planet. The minds that sometimes take us down the pathway of judgment or worry, but can also be creative and inspiring and problem solving and enlightened. We breathe in our gratitude that even when people's bodies might not work anymore, their minds continue. Breathing that in even deeper, we move on to our soul. And as you move on to centering on your soul, you may find your energy get lighter. You may find your energy move up and out. You may feel a lightness that feels like dancing or laughing. Or it might be an energy of protectiveness or guidance. But that soul energy is here for eternity and has been here. So our souls connect without effort to every other soul on this planet and the souls of the living nature, animals, and even the non-living materials on this planet, like our crystals. And today I'm going to take you on a journey to channel, like Marilyn does, to the best of our ability, the energy of our parents. And I'm doing this in a way to allow you to see the gifts you've received in spite of what may have felt like challenges from mother or father, or the people that represented your mother or father. So let's start with our mothers and picture that physical being that was or is your mother, and take in the physical nature of her. And if she was biologically your mother, whether there's similarities in your physical nature to her, and honor what she may have gone through to be a mother to you, your brothers, your sisters, in physical form. And as you look at the similarities between her and yourself, pay attention to her mind, whether she had judgments or fears or worries, or whether she provided love, support, guidance, the things we'd love to have from a mother. And perhaps you can feel her struggles, her gifts, and what she passed on to you. And even above that is her soul. If you feel her soul connecting to your soul right now, you may feel or sense her apologies, her protection, her guidance, her love, anything that comes through that her soul could communicate, that she may not have been able to communicate or may not communicate now on the planet. But in bringing her being to connect with you, you may absolutely see why you chose her and the lessons she provided for you as your female guide in childhood and beyond. And in forgiving any challenges you might have had with her and appreciating the gifts she gave you, perhaps that connection to her and to her ancestors can provide you with the support that we all would love to have as our planet continues to expand and grow spiritually. And then now looking at your father, his physicality, whether he was big and strong or more thin or slight. Do you have qualities that resemble him in physical form? And then his mind. How loving, how giving, whether he was judgmental, whether he was kind, whether he provided structure and guidance, or was he more critical? What did his mind and how did that connect with who you are today? Did you take on some of his qualities as a male role model? Really taking that in. And then soul to soul, connecting with that, your father, on that spiritual level, where he may be sending so much love, so much strength, perhaps an apology, perhaps asking for forgiveness, perhaps holding you up. But whatever he provided as you chose him for the lessons and all you needed to learn to be able to be here today. And in meditation, you can do this with your animals, your pets, your crystals, your brothers, your sisters, your children, realizing that as you give yourself a chance to really take this in, it all starts to make more sense. And it can expand our sense of gratitude for the gifts and the challenges that help us to adapt and grow today. Breathing that in and coming back to just your body, your mind, your soul. Maybe feeling those connections in a loving way. Also branching out our connections to one another and the appreciation we have for each woman and child that shows up on our call. And the fact that the time we set aside to be with one another is precious. So let's ground ourselves again to come back to be on the call, feeling our feet connected to the earth, feeling our energy expand, and feeling a state of gratitude for every soul, ancestor, spirit that has touched our lives. When you're ready, stretching out and coming back to being here now. I'm watching her play with Gwen. Do you see how much fun she's having?
Thank you for that, Janet. That was kind of timely for me. It was the anniversary of my father's passing was yesterday. And still after all of these years, you know, it's still emotional. And so that was very timely for me. So thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I wonder because I know when I did this alone, the sadness and pain I felt from my mother made so much sense about how she acted or her behavior. But the love I felt from my father brought me to tears, like to my knees. And so it's very interesting to allow that to come in and to see, you know, why we may have said, okay, I'm ready for this, you know.
Well, it's kind of funny you said that. Mine mirrored yours exactly. And as you know, my relationship with my mom. So it's exactly the same, you know, trying to work out that, navigate that with my mom, but at the same time, this overwhelming love and, you know, for my dad. So it was a very nice meditation. Thank you. So nice meditation, nice protection prayer, and good news from Ilona. So Marie, try to top that. So I'm actually going to let you run with this because, to be honest, I really I just couldn't quite grasp this chapter. And so I know we're supposed to be letting go of old agreements and replacing them with new agreements, which I'm assuming are the 4 agreements we're learning. And, you know, and I can see that it talks a lot about childhood and, you know, being that child. I think Janet and I talked about the inner child before. So, you know, all of that as a little piece worked for me. I understood it, but then trying to put it all together and to manifest it was really hard for me. So go for it.
Well, I mean, this last section, even the prayer one could be, you know, the section on the prayer at the very end can actually be a whole other discussion that we have, because I mean, he's got one on love and it's so beautiful. And he's got one on our freedom and it's beautiful as well. Um, I guess I should start where he really talks about when the child is free. And he was talking about that. And I was a firstborn in a Latin culture and living in America, and I was parentified. The only thing that I could really tap into being that free spirited child is that I spoke my mind, which drove my family nuts. And I always said I have rights. Every time they were trying to get me to conform and comply into something, as this little girl would always say, I have a right to speak my mind. I have a right. And let me tell you, that did not go well. That just did not go well with my mom. She just saw me as a strong-willed child, which I was. And from their perspective, I was a bit rebellious. But because I was the firstborn and I was parentified, I had to make a lot of adult decisions as a child. So, you know, in this chapter, he talks about children being free, you know, because they're free to play, free to explore. They're not as inhibited as we are. And what came up for me is that little girl being an adult. But what also came up for me is I remember my children as they were growing, they were so free with their expression of love towards us. It didn't matter what, they were always saying loves and hugs and everything. And then I remember vividly when they became teenagers, you know, they began to individuate. And all of a sudden, that kind of affection began to change, you know, and they weren't as free for the hugging and the kissing. They still say, I love you and all of that. But I noticed that there was space created as they were growing up because they were individuating. So they weren't as clingy and all those things that, you know, like I see my grandson and he doesn't hesitate to jump on me and hug me and, you know, look at my face. And this weekend, I had my glasses on because I didn't want to traumatize him. And he said, why are you wearing glasses? And I said, I have boo-boos. He said, well, I want to see your boo-boos. And I showed him I took off my glasses and he's like, oh, your boo-boos are yellow. You know, but then he hugged me and he said, are you going to go to the doctor? And I said, yes, you and your daddy are taking me to the doctor to check my boo-boos, you know. And that was just him being free and loving and playful at the same time. And so it's that kind of freedom that we have as children. And he talks about how we kind of forget that as we take on all of these responsibilities and our book of law, right? Because by the time we become adults, we have this loaded book of law of not just of what was passed on to us, but what we've added to it. And what he's suggesting in this section, which he has through the whole process of reading on the 4 agreements, is to look at that book of law and systematically, one by one, look at it, make a decision whether it's an agreement you want to keep or not. But it's not an easy process. It's not an easy process. So what I'd like to do is, there were a couple of things here, and that's further down. Maybe I should wait on that one. But I wanted to focus on because the archetypes that live with us is the victim, right? The judge, and then our book of law. That's what keep us from being free. And as I was reading this section, so I was looking at my childhood, I was looking at my children, but I was also remembering what I was taught, because I was raised Catholic, and what I was taught. And I thought all of these concepts are biblical. But in the way I understood them at the time, being raised with it, is that death has to occur, your physical death, in order to get to heaven, right? Either heaven or hell or whatever they want to call it, when in reality, it's here. We get to create that. And we don't get the freedom if we don't choose it. But to choose the freedom means that we systematically need to let go of some of these agreements that we've made with ourselves, to let go of the attachments that we created to emotions, the attachments that we created to things. So it's not an easy concept to embrace when you're not quite ready for that, Lisa.
Well, yeah, and when you're talking about letting go or choosing which agreements to, shed, so to speak, part of me is like, well, what is that agreement? What agreement do I have with myself that what is the agreement? What is the actual words or the words of my agreement that keeps me in that place?
Yeah.
And so that recognizing what agreement I've made versus what agreements we want me to make, that's kind of, and I know some of it is, what's the word? It's not inbred. That's not the word. some of it, it's
Condition?
Say that again, Janet.
Condition? Do you mean condition?
Yeah, maybe exactly. So yeah, that's kind of my struggle with this, is trying to identify what that is. Yes,
Ilona.
Ilona.
So Marie, because I want Lisa, I think what you're really pinpointing is the mastery of awareness.
Yes, that's what I was gonna get at.
We just do just the mastery of awareness today and just stay there, because it's a really big thing. There's a lot of different ways you can approach it, but it's about awareness, and awareness is not thought.
Yes.
Awareness does not come from your brain. Awareness comes from your soul.
So let me say that in this process, the first mastery is the mastery of awareness. And in order to get into the mastery of transformation, which the 4 agreements is a part of that, you need to have mastered awareness. And then you can go into transformation. And once you've gotten into the mastery of transformation, and I want to say, because I told you, I really believe the first agreement is not one that we will ever completely master, because it literally is evolving with us as we move forward with these concepts. But I do believe that if we master our ability to do our best without judging it, in other words, staying in that range of doing our best, that's what allows us to be able to move on to the 3rd level, which is the mastery of intent, or the mastery of love. Okay. But yes, Ilona is absolutely correct. The first place to start is that awareness. And I sometimes, the way I connected with my clients is I connected to the 6 stages of change. And sometimes it's that pre-contemplation that something's up, I'm not sure what, something's got to change, but I'm still trying to figure out what that is. And we sometimes innately feel that something has to shift within us, but we're not sure what it is. So we're in that pre-contemplative place where something's just gone awry within me, but I'm not quite sure what that is. And as you begin to kind of sit with it and work with it, you start, something might have triggered you, you watch something, put a thought in there, and then all of a sudden you're like, huh, and then you begin to explore a little bit more. Then you move into that contemplative state, like, okay, I guess a great example would be losing weight. You know, especially after the holidays, you'd have all that, you know, feasting of good food and all of that, and then the new year arrives and you're like, oh, I think I have to get back on the wagon, kind of thing. And then you're trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to approach this? That's the contemplation, is that, you know, do I join Weight Watchers? Do I join the gym? You know, how am I going to begin to drop these extra pounds that I gain? And then you go into that pre-action mode kind of thing, where you're like, okay, I think I'm gonna join Weight Watchers, and I'm gonna do, you know, Pilates as an exercise. And then you go into action, right? But you couldn't have gotten into action unless you began that contemplative phase. And the awareness piece to me is kind of like that. There's something where, when I first read the 4 agreements, it resonated. It seemed so simple. I'm like, oh yeah, right. That got me started in that thought process. And as I began to notice what I was taking personally, I started noticing little things and began to create little shifts. And then you begin that evolution and transformation. But I mean, one of the examples that I could use for me, I come from a culture that is very critical. You know, my grandmother used to love me to take over to South Coast Plaza. She said, let me sit here and people watch, because she just loved to find everything wrong with people, right? And I remember being in my late teens, and because I had that mentality, and I remember thinking to myself, oh, I don't want to be this way. I don't want this to be that person that goes and sits and is looking for what to criticize in a person. And I don't know how that just kind of sat with me, but I began to change that, and I began to look for answers. I began to see, is this really what people do all the time, or is there a different way of being? And that's how I began that journey. And then that journey took me to the next one. And then somewhere I landed with the 4 agreements, and then I landed here with you guys, right? So it evolves. It evolves as you gain awareness, you begin to evolve as well. And your choices begin to change, and they're different. And I know I'm being very simplistic. Ilona, do you want to chime in on some of your beautiful knowledge you've got?
Well, so Lisa, one of the things that I would say in terms of basic awareness, you list the 5 things about yourself that make you feel like crap. You just list them on a piece of paper, and then you put another column. And how would you fix it? How would you take those 5 things and turn them into something else? Those 5 things came probably from a variety of sources and yourself. It's not worth taking the time to tease out where they come from. You don't have to spend that time anymore. What you do want to spend time on is, so this is how I want to feel instead. So this is my awareness. This is how I feel now. This is what I choose to feel going forward. And in between there is where you get to ask for a lot of help and support and guidance from whoever comes to you. But that's a really big, simple step to look at awareness, because there's nobody who's going to be able to go into anybody's soul experience and say, this did this, did this, did this, because they're not you. They didn't live your life. They don't have your experiences. Even the heavens aren't really good at understanding the earth. They're just not. So you have to be able to have this collaborative conversation, even with all your soul and all your guides, and going, you know, a lot of times I'll say to the heavens, this person needs a win. And this person needs a win in a month, in 2 months, in a couple of days. And if you don't find a way to give them a win, you just lost them. Because that window of awareness opens where the discomfort, the confusion, and the lack of direction is tolerable for just a very short period of time in a human being. And if that infusion, that person, that saying doesn't show up in that window of opportunity, humans tend to shut the window. And then the heavens just have to wait till you decide to open it up again in awareness that there is freedom, a breeze, some beautiful rain that may come through, whatever it's going to be. But the key to the whole point is to really look at how do I choose to feel, and how do I get there? I often say this, and for all the therapists on here, this is just my take on it. You can spend years figuring out why and not get better, or you can focus immediately on how and make change happen.
Yeah.
It's
Wow.
how that really matters, much more than the why. So that awareness is, how do I change this? How do I fix this? How do I love this? How do I heal this? And that takes awareness and becomes practical, becomes useful, and becomes an effective tool of real transformation. But it starts with that general awareness. Is that good, Marie? Did I do that?
Yes, yes. And in fact, I think we kind of jumped ahead a little bit when we get into this section, because he talks about the angel of death. And, we have such a negative connotation to the angel of death, which the angel of death has the power, of course, to take away, but he brings a lot of gifts when he does that, and as part of, there is an exercise. He gives you 3 steps that you can pick from to begin this transformative aspect of your process or your journey. And what Ilona just talked about is writing down the 5. He actually goes in deeper. He wants you to write down all of those agreements that you made with yourself and then systematically begin to change each one. So essentially, it's what Ilona said. It's writing it down. This is how I feel, and what would I like to feel? And in my example that I told you as a child, the judgment of being critical of everybody, I realized that's not what I want to be. I know that's an agreement that I was taught, but I made the decision. I don't like who I am and how I feel when I do that, and I want to be different from that.
But Marie, that brings up a good point. And Lisa, this may be part, I don't know, I'd like to hear your feedback on this, Lisa, okay? Because the whole point of those, those agreements, that book of law, is so that you conform, you domesticate to your cultural experience. So, I mean, really early, I was born this way. My sister said I was born bossy. At 2.5 years old, I said to her, why do people have to die? No one should have to die. And this was how I just came in, right? So I'm going through, college. And then I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm in the field. And my awareness was, all I am is a tool for the government to get people nobody wants to deal with out of their face. And nobody's ever really going to get any better, no matter how much I love or no matter how much I do anything. And so I had to face the reality that this book of law that I'm being paid as a professional to participate in is a book of law that I can't agree to, nor can I participate in. And so I nearly gave myself a heart attack to change my book of law. And at that point, I left mainstream therapy. I left mainstream social work. I left mainstream behavioral health. I left it behind, and it was a lonely path. There wasn't a lot of support. And I did this a long time ago before it became popular, right? So, but in that moment, I was in my zone. I was in my power. I was connecting to the people who are my tribe, and I was rewriting my book, and I was experiencing this enormous joy and pleasure and freedom and the abundance that came with it. Now, is it the same kind of abundance that I would have if I stayed in it? No, it's not. But I would never give up my book of law to live by somebody else's determination of what I should be doing with my gifts. So when you in awareness step up to this, It requires courage and bravery. And when you show up in the courage and bravery, you're met with the joy and the freedom and the productivity. And I get to participate in miracle making every single day. That's never going to happen if I was just in a traditional setting, because I wouldn't be free to do what I could do. That Marie, right? It's different, right? Boom, I make it happen. You show up with me, there's a fire under your ass and nothing's ever going to be the same again, Yeah, but I wouldn't be able to do that in any other kind of setting and so, yeah, are there people clamoring my door to see me? No, there aren't. But the ones who come, oh my God, it's a wonderful thing. And I still get supported. And now, I connect to a group like this. I have my Ascension community. I have my own sisterhood. We find each other, but it's small, Lisa. It's small, it's intimate, and we don't belong to the bigger world anymore. It doesn't have a hold on us.
Ilona, what you just said completely resonated. And I know, Janet, those of us that are therapists, we don't practice in the way that we are traditionally taught. And I think that's what makes us stand out in what we do. For me, Ilona, when I started my master's program, they wanted me to go into this cookie cutter thing. And in my head, I don't know if it was, my help out there from the soul guides, but in my head, I'm going, no, I'm going to make my own damn road and I'm going to make it the way I want it. And that's always been the case for me. And when you said, I'm not going to go back and conform, and that's so me, I cannot go back and conform into this cookie cutter approach as a therapist, because I know that what I am doing in my own, style is helping, it's working. And why would I want to change something that I'm passionate about and it works?
I mean, I have personal experience with Janet, but Janet, I think that if you had been the type of therapist that followed the book, I don't think we would be here today. You know what I mean?
Right. It's so funny. My daughter became a therapist and had to study all the rules and ethics and all that stuff. And she goes, my God, Mom, you break every rule. What is wrong with you?
Thank you. Thank you for breaking the rules.
Yes.
Changed my life too.
Marilyn and I can testify that she
But Marilyn,
rules.
But Marilyn, you've done the same thing by choosing to channel.
Yep.
Done the same.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Can't hold back. No, absolutely.
Look at us, we're just a bunch of rebels.
We really are. We really are. But notice that what we're really tapping in when we do this is not so much the rule breaking, because that's a construct, is that we're choosing to step into our authenticity. We are choosing to be more of us in our natural element when we actually break these constructed rules.
I think it's really important that to break the rules. C just said something a couple of weeks ago. I wasn't here last week. Maybe it was a couple of weeks ago when at first you weren't agreeing with something. You said, I wouldn't be authentic if I disagreed and didn't say anything. So to be authentic, you have to share that. I think that that's how the new modalities happen. When you think of the physical modalities and the mental health modalities, they're all people who put their toes outside the box. You have the Alexander technique, you have Rolfing, then you have Jung and Freud and I have to. So it's stepping outside the box that becomes the new. And I just have to share one of the wittiest things that ever passed my ears. I tell once I said something goofy and I said, oh, a Freudian slip. And I said, ooh, makes you feel younger.
I said, I wear it because it makes me feel younger.
Right. It was hilarious. But the thing is, it's the people who step outside the box. We're reading this book, and then we have this like little hook. We're going outside of it. That's the new that we bring in too. We don't have to follow. It's fun to follow the path and then dip your toes into and bring in whatever is what you bring to it yourself. And all of us do. And that's the exciting part to share.
And I think what we're tapping in here is, and in our discussion is that we are stepping away of what society culture says we're supposed to be like, and we're stepping away from what they say is normal into more of what we're saying, no, that's not normal. Being who we are in this kind of space is what normal is to our own authentic selves. So we are deviating from that expectation of what the main group wants us to do, you know. And Ilona, I'm talking sociologically now. The in group, we're really the out group.
But you know, I think the key there in what you just said is the authenticity. I think that if we really focus on what our authenticity is, some of those answers will be easier. I love Ilona's way of putting 5 items down, but you know, when you're putting those items down, it's how do I make myself more authentic? You know, if I'm looking at those. So I think that that's kind of a key word in for me, for my understanding or comprehension on how to move forward with the agreements.
Ilona, could I just say one thing is that the more you become authentic, meaning accepting who you are, your own essence, love just flows. It just emanates out of you naturally. I want to say Janet is an example of this. You know, for many of us that have had the opportunity to, I met Janet through the group where she had Marilyn, you know, work with our intuition. That's how I ended up meeting Janet. But there was an essence of Janet in that space with that group that just emanated all of this love. And I didn't know Janet's personal history or anything like that. It was because she was showing up authentically.
Thank you. Thank you. I honor my father for teaching me, to just be unconditional love, and in spite of my mother. So it was amazing. Yeah. But thank you, Marie. And I feel it with all of you. So we're so lucky. We're so lucky. Yeah.
So to me, the link with that authenticity, Lisa, is honesty.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You have to be really honest about what you're feeling or not feeling, whether you want to be a part of or whether you want to leave. And that honesty takes you to a level of awareness that frees you. But if you're not willing to be honest, you'll write anything down and it won't matter.
I want to say brutally honest,
okay,
in a kind, loving way. But brutally honest, because I've had to exercise that recently and it's painful, but I've done it in a kind, loving way.
Does anybody else? I see Sita there smiling and nodding her head. Sita, do you want to add anything to this?
What does that mean, brutally honest? I mean, how can honesty be a brute? Unless you're using it as a leverage to throw it in somebody's face, and I can't imagine you doing that.
Well, there's that part of us that resists our truth. Okay. I mean, there are times where it's like, I want to be in denial. I want to go stick my head somewhere and not acknowledge that. And when you're feeling that, that's when you have to just grab it and say, okay, let's just see this and face it for what it is. And come to that acceptance, which
is that the brute part?
That's the brute part, because it's not fun to see your truth and see it for its whole ugliness and not resist it. That's the brave thing to do, is to see it for its reality. That's when you're being brave and strong, because you're pulling away from the construct of push it down, ignore it, get yourself up and move forward. It's like, no, I'm going to just work through this, as painful as it is. By the way, the pain is really all up here, because right here and right here, it's nothing but love, nothing but love. It's here where all the torment happens.
Yeah, I know that it talks when we started this book, it talks about letting go of those things, mistakes, recognizing it's a mistake and move it on. And while we were doing the meditation, Janet, I had a shudder moment of something that I had done. And I'm like, oh God, I can't believe I did that. Right. It's like happened probably, I'm not 60, but it happened almost, 25 years, 30 years ago. And I still have that shudder moment. I still have that, oh God, I wish I'd said something different, or I wish I'd handled it different. And, it's going all the way back to the beginning of this book where it said to let go of those mistakes.
Lisa, but that's the judge. And that's what this process is to free yourself from the judge, the victim, and the book of law. That system of belief that keeps you chained. That's what he's talking about, being free and wild, is letting go of the judge, letting go of the victim, letting go of a belief system that's nothing but a construct.
Here's the other side of mistakes. You just gave somebody an opportunity to learn something.
Yeah.
A mistake isn't just a mistake. It can be turned into a gift for everybody involved. And from an awareness perspective, you could look at the gift, and then the gift frees you and frees the other person. And then the mistake becomes an opportunity. But if you're not willing to see that the mistake is also an opportunity for the person who you had the problem with, then you really go down the tubes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay, so I got some work to do. I got to get some paper, I got to put some stuff down. But what really helps with this conversation is identifying some of those things and giving me, a way for me to understand what the judge is. But that couldn't be more crystal clear now. Kind of I'm the judge, right? And so that's going to be really helpful for me to try and move through this chapter, because I really was like struggling with it, going, how am I going to accomplish this so I can go back and live the 4 agreements? So yeah, I love this. Anybody else have any experience with this chapter like I did, or everybody else pretty much? Yes, Sita?
Well, the idea of the awareness, it's interesting. I looked at it a little bit differently, which it sounds like I do this regularly, huh? When I believe that all of us here have already made choices, like on that list, we've made them probably starting when we were little, and we keep adding to them. And so we're all in the place of already being aware that is wanting to be on a conscious spiritual path. Can we all agree with that? We're doing that. So when I was given this concept of becoming aware of what I'm thinking, the way I took it then and the way I still see it is literally minute by minute. Like literally, what am I thinking minute by minute? And the overall word that came to me when you were all speaking is the word nonviolence. That's a really easy way to see what track you're on in your mind. Like you said, you afterwards, what do you feel when you say something? What do you feel like after you say it? Did you feel like you were right on, offensive, uplifting? That kind of awareness, like minute by minute, what am I thinking? How am I talking to my own self? Am I having faith, confidence, mercy on my own self? No. Am I compassionate? Am I giving this out to everyone I talk to? What am I offering? And it really does come down to the feelings. Like, what am I feeling? What did that make me feel like? Am I comfortable or not comfortable? That's another very easy way to figure out, to bring in awareness.
Oops.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Sorry, guys, my computer froze up just a little bit. So I'm gonna let you guys talk for a minute while I fix it. Seems my internet's kind of going haywire. So you guys talk amongst yourselves.
The nonviolent aspect really resonates with me. The whole thing about brutal truth, I was thinking it's so much kinder to think it's brutal of create. Now, on the other hand, I really firmly believe we chose to come in to learn exactly what we design our learning path, is my opinion. And it's fascinating. It's interesting trying to pack ourselves into everybody else's book is brutal. The opening of it, the truth, is the resonating with your own soul. So as tough as it might be, it still feels like the authenticity is there. And the whole idea of making mistakes, it's really interesting. I've learned through experience that I absolutely don't believe in hypotheticals. If you have a hypothetical, what would I do in this situation? It's a mental exercise. When you're in the situation, you have your mind, but you have your heart and your gut, and the entities around you, and the information coming in, and the energy fields of whatever it is that's going on. And you might think you made a mistake with your mind, but there might be another part of you that's like, hey, get out of town, get out of Dodge. No, yes, you know. So a mistake could be a couple of things that you're capitulating to a mindset that was the brutal enforcement of the book that you don't agree with, that you came to break out of. And then you can use that as a tool. Oh, look, I did that. Okay, good. I see that now. Or I really think that, I don't think anything. I'm picking up that more than half of what we think are mistakes are our own souls telling us either get out of Dodge, jump right in, give it away, do it. And I'm getting the wave. We're instinctive beings. We've been watching a lot of zoo stuff because Sarah's working at the zoo. So she's researching. There's a great thing. Animal Planet has a whole series on the San Diego Zoo, and learning about and watching these animals and how brilliant and how smart. We just think our way out of that instinct, you know? So maybe the mistake, whether you stayed or you didn't stay, you came or you went, there's something else to it sometimes. So either way, it's growth. Whether it's knee-jerk reaction and you come to understand it, but then honor the soul that's all also giving information, the non-violence to our own souls.
And then nonviolence is spiritual, mental, emotional, in your memories and in your body. It's on every level.
Wow.
You know, that's really helpful because I came to an understanding with all the stuff I've been through before, but this car accident, they talk about pain management. And I always thought, and I was brought up, that pain management was endurance, nothing more. I learned about pain management, and you know, it's really okay because I didn't apply that to other parts. The brain management, I don't, you know, it's happening, but I love giving it that, you know, just awareness, giving it a language, having that it doesn't, you don't have to endure repetitive thought, you know. And once we figure out how to do that, oh God, we want to give it to everybody, but it isn't that easy because, you know, I still get back, we're all human, we do it, we're taught to do it. It's all about the expansion and being kind to each other and ourselves while we're doing it.
There's that kindness thing again.
You know, and I think Marie and did Janet go away?
Yeah, Janet had an appointment at 11, so.
The other thing is, you know, the really profound therapists that we've all worked with and healers, they have the limitless power of love to deliver the brutal honesty that we won't often tell ourselves. And that's why we find them priceless. It's delivered with love.
Yes, Mary Beth.
What if you find yourself in that position of seeing someone who needs to face their truth, and out of deep love wanting to say, look at yourself?
In general, Mary Beth, I would say, I don't know about anyone, speaking for me. If somebody comes and asks me, then I will tell them. If they're not asking and they don't want it, then you really risk the relationship. But if they're asking and they want it, then it really moves into a transformative place.
So it's no unsolicited advice. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Well, I think this goes back, Ilona, to what you've taught me is to observe and respect, right? Respecting where the person is and what they're choosing for themselves. And then if they ask, then at that point, they're giving you permission to tell them what you're perceiving.
Marilyn, were you wanting to add to that?
Yeah, I think that's really a good rule a lot of the time, but sometimes there might be other parties involved, innocence involved. So it gets more complicated, but I think staying on the part of compassion and it's interesting. There was a parable about that I read once about a yogi who was teaching his group, and in front of them somebody was getting mugged, and a bunch of the students jumped up and said, oh, we're going to intervene and help. And the yogi said, no, that's karmic. They're just balancing the karma. We have to let that be. And so the violence continued. And it really made me sick. And I thought, I don't remember where I read it or what I thought. And I thought, wait a minute, the fact that they didn't intervene changed everyone's karma that watched it, that didn't do something to help, or at least try to offer heart or consciousness if an innocent is being hurt. So I don't know if that kind of makes clear what I'm thinking. But I think I agree with what you're saying too. And I've had to really learn, yeah, nobody wants to know unless you're asked. But then there's responsibility on a soul level that isn't about ego or restitution or punishment in any way, just for kindness. And I think weighing out where it can help. So.
Wow. Wow, see, I told you there was a lot to this chapter, and I don't even think we really got to any of it. So, Marie, how do you want to handle this chapter?
I think we should forge ahead to the next level, which, we've talked about these archetypes that are alive and well within us. And the next phase is to look at the parasite. How do you begin to deal with what he calls these archetypes, parasites? He has a great analogy that this parasite has like 1,000 heads, and that you have to systematically knock each head out.
I saw that in a movie once. Okay, so the parasite chapter or part is, what is the title of that? Is that the one that
there's like no specific, I mean, he talks about first how to be free, right? And
right.
then, let me see.
He moves on to the discipline of the warrior, and then he talks about the initiation of the dead, embracing the angel of death.
Yeah. So we talked about, well, I know in your book, because I've got the more artistic book, it's 107 in my book, but we already have addressed the first step towards personal freedom is awareness.
Okay.
Right. So we need to be aware that we are not free in order to be free. We need to be aware of what the problem is in order to solve the problem. Right. So we're understanding that the judge, the victim, and our book of law is what keeps us in the struggle. So I think for me, it's really to look at that next phase of that. It's addressing the first dream, and how do you get into the second dream, which is also addressing the parasite.
Okay.
So what I'm going to say is just read the book, that sections of the book. Listen to, if you have the Audible, listen to it because it does help you.
Okay, I was just going to say, after this conversation today, I now can go back and reread it and probably have a better comprehension. Because, my mind goes like this, and it's like, well, what does this mean? And I have to go do this now. And so.
So here's an option. When you go back and read it, don't think.
Yes.
Just literally read the words and let it affect your heart and your body. Don't think about it. Just read it.
I appreciate that advice, Ilona, because that's my biggest issue, is that I read and think and read and think and read and think. And, so I'm going, you've given me some good advice today. Write down the 5 things and stop thinking. So maybe not in that order, but I think it'll be helpful. And so I really appreciate the way we kind of tackled this chapter. So it's I can better understand it. So thank you, guys. Marie will be back in a second, I'm sure. But before we go, did anybody else want to add anything or ask any questions, or just you're all doing good and holding up? Okay. Maria, I can't tell you thank you enough for leading these conversations. It's really, really helpful. Again, Ilona, thanks for the good news today. I think we're all that place and overwhelmed with what we see on the TV to feel and hope that there is. So thank you for that. And yes, Sita.
I do have a idea, Leona, for your book that's coming out. I don't know if you're already thinking about it, but I immediately saw like an online course. So talk about reaching more people, and here you say, you haven't. Anyway, what I was thinking is when it comes out is that we can all get copies, or whoever wants to get a copy, and then like give us an introduction or a summary or something like that. And then those who are really interested design some course that's not at this hour where we get to share all the different things, but to really take us through a course. You know what I mean? And then that could be a practice for like an online thing. And then that way we aren't limited. Anyway, that's what my idea was.
No, it's a great idea, Sita. What I'm actually doing is creating an entire book club guide, which is those mini lessons.
All right.
It is mini lessons.
Yeah.
But my hope is I would love to do an online course and share things. I would love to do that. It's just how to reach the people who would want to come.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sita. I appreciate that. But I really would appreciate you guys being, like a experimental lab.
Guinea pigs or lab rats, one of those. Yes, I can do all of that. We're a very flexible group, Ilona. All you have to do is ask. That sounds great. We would love to, I'm sure. So, okay, my ladies. Well, Lynn, are you doing okay?
I am. I have 4 pages of notes and I feel a little dizzy. My mind has exploded. One thing that Marilyn said really helped me a lot, Lisa, when you were talking about having like when you had the
shutter moment.
Yeah, shutter moment is I immediately thought of like one of my favorite shutter moments that I think of when I want to feel bad. And what Marilyn said, that came out wrong.
But I get it.
Party.
When I'm being judgmental of myself, I remember this really shitty thing I did in college that I'm like, oh God, I wish but that was from the book, the family story that, oh, that's where I learned that. And it made me feel so bad when I did it that, oh, not ever doing that again.
Yeah.
And so I learned from it. So, oh, that's why I did it, because it didn't, that's what was in that book that I need, I don't need that in my book. Anyway, I can't even articulate it. However you said it.
It's really exciting because that's how, by whatever happened, that's how you learned that you didn't resonate.
Yeah.
That's
So,
huge.
I'm still sad that I did that, but everyone in the room, I hope, learned from it. Oh, yeah. So,
Was there blood? Did you kill anyone? I mean,
no, I did not.
okay,
No, I
good.
did not. I just said something inappropriate and hurtful, and it was like, whoa, that was unconscious.
Yeah.
So,
Or
yeah, so I've been learning from that for 50 years, and I guess I can let it go now.
Time to let it go.
Really. I really appreciated everything that was said today, and the meditation. I actually felt a little dizzy in the meditation because I went to outer space. I was like, whoa, I feel a little nauseous.
Boy, Lynn, you can write a book just on your experiences today.
I know. I love this group. I love it. I can't wait to just read your book, Ilona. All right, I love everybody.
for
Thank you
joining
so
us.
much.
Thanks,
for
Lynn,
everything
for
today.
sharing your shudder so we can all relate. And Adele, is everything good in your neck of the woods too?
Yeah, excellent.
Okay, good. Liz, give baby Gwen a kiss for us. And Noreen, thanks for joining us today. And I guess we'll see you all next Monday, and we'll just continue.
Yes,
Doing
and thank
that-
you, Marie.
We do.
Thank you for guiding us. Yes.
Oh, no,
Thank
thank you.
guys.
Thank
I'm
you.
loving it. Thank you.
Bye.
Very good.
Oh, Anna, you said thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Noreen. We'll see you next week.